If you're walking up a hill, turn around, walk down a hill. We can't bring the boat ashore until everyone's accounted for. We have 16 people today. We have seen an occasional tick, not gonna lie to you. The only mammal we have out here other than humans and the dogs are voles, but we do have a deer swim over here every once in a while. So when you're done your trip today, we've seen 2 this summer, okay? So just be aware. We also have poison ivy, but as long as you stay on the trails, you won't be exposed to it. We cut it back out. One of the trails is right behind my husband. It's the Win Egan path. He cut that last summer. It's actually really quite pretty. It goes through the shade. The National Park Service Invasive Species team were out here last month. They got all excited because we have the best example of a cedar maritime forest they've ever seen. We didn't even know it was there. So if you walk through there, if you're coming up a hill, look to your right. There's a bunch of cedar trees that are like 40 years old. They think it's amazing. Anyway, so that's the Win Egan. It'll end up bringing you up to the top plateau towards the houses and the lighthouse. Over here, you'll see a sign that says the Chapman Trail. Captain Chapman was our very first lighthouse keeper. That's a really easy trail. It meanders a grassy trail to the campground. I'm going to take whoever wants to come with me to do the history tour up the main trail. What I will tell, if anyone just wants to go for a picnic, the best place for a picnic and views is if you walk the Chapman Trail to the campground. There's picnic tables there and a really pretty view of the sound. If you go down where the Chapman sign is, there's 5 steps going down. To the right then is the Fog Bell Trail, which will walk all the way along the cliffs up to the lighthouse. I usually recommend people do come up to the lighthouse first and then come back down the Fog Bell Trail, okay? So if you guys want to take off, that's fine. If you want to stay with me, if you go off independently, the light station has red roofs. If you are in a land area that has a green, gray, or black roof, turn around and find a red roof and come back. It's really hard to cross the boundaries unless you choose not to read the signs. But just so you know, the light station has all red roofs, okay? So what, come on up. Oil houses that were built around 1900, and I told you ours was the prettiest oil house in all of New England. That's because it was built with the rocks you guys just walked over. So they were frugal New Englanders. They used the resources they had. The walls on our oil house are about 2 feet wide. The slate roof was refurbished last year. The roofer actually came out and told us about 80% of those slates are original to the build in the 1900s. However, history changes frequently when you do a little more research. We're walking up the main trail. It's always been considered the main trail. It's labeled on the survey from 1891 as the main trail. The survey from 1891, however, had the oil house on the left-hand side of the main trail. We found a picture when we were filing things away this spring of Edward Rowe Snow, who was the Flying Santa. He was flying over the light station in 1936, and someone took a picture overhead of his plane, and there were 2 oil houses. Essex Heritage, who owns the property now, had no idea that this actually existed a second building. So Brian and I, in our infinite boredom, got our garden loppers. We're overrun by invasive species of bittersweet and honeysuckle. You'll see as we walk up here, the hedge is about 12 feet tall and about, 50 feet wide. We cut through it. We found the other oil house, so come on up. So in 1891, on the survey, it was labeled as oil house. That was right when they were probably dual purposing this building that existed. It was originally the coal shed, because you'll see all the coal that's surrounding the foundation layer underneath it goes this way. Nothing penetrated it. So we were very, very fortunate that we found it as a find. It was just kind of a fun thing that we like to do out here when we're bored. And if you stand where the doorway is, it lines up perfectly with this oil house. You know, the U.S. Light Service really liked everything to be just so they had a perfect alignment. So this was kind of fun. No one even knew it existed, and we found it. That kind of gives us a really good feeling after 5 years that we were able to leave this for everyone. It was fun to find a lot of artifacts. We found a lot of the china that we actually dated it. It was a hotel china pattern from the 1900s. So most likely it was part of the Winnegan Hotel. And, you know, being a frugal New England light station, when the hotel burnt down, anything that existed, they probably brought it over here. So this also could potentially have been used as the dump when it went down, the walls went down. So anyways, this is one of the fun things. We rewrote history this year. All right, well, okay. So first, okay, there you go, you figured it out. This is my husband's favorite spot. We saw that there was an oak tree here. So I went in and lopped off all the top of the trees so we could have a picture of a view of the Salem Sound. And it's, we stop in shady spots. There's not a lot of shade on this island. So actually that's a place where, yes, we do sit and, you know, watch the boats. If I can't find my husband, he's usually there with his earbuds listening to music, watching the boats sail by. So the keeper's house is here. Remember I told you we have red roofs. Brian and I volunteered to be able to live in that house. It's 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. The assistant keeper's house is 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. The solar system that we put in 2019 to light all the houses is just over here. I don't want to block the whole thing. Oh no. But there's plenty of time to take pictures. So we'll come farthest away from the lighthouse, and when I saw my picture somewhere, but low man on the totem pole had to be the farthest person away from the lighthouse in the winter. Keep that in mind. This is also our biggest fundraiser for the island. You can come out and spend the weekend here. You arrive on Friday and leave on Sunday. The house keeps up to 6 people. You come out of the Numkeg, you bring your own food. It's a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath house, grills, things like that. You get to see the sunrises, the sunsets. Look at the Martins. Freaking cool. Wow. It is freaking cool. All right. I mean, it's actually really just a really fun escape. We just sent home a family. There was actually 7. We sent home 5 kids and 2 adults. They played wiffle ball a whole weekend long. It was awesome. So that's an option. If you ever want to come stay with us for a weekend, you can go ahead and do that. So we'll just keep moving on up here. When you guys start going on your own, if you come down this path right here between the solar lights, that brings you down to our campground. Another way you can come stay out here with us. We have 3 campsites. It's kind of more glamping because we have refrigeration and charging stations and a composting head and grills and everything else. So it's pretty darn nice. It also overlooks Salem Sound. We've had a really terrible whale sighting this summer. We've only had 1. But normally the campers are the ones who always tell me they're seeing whales because they swim between the 2 islands. So for anyone who needs to use the bathroom, our day visitors, just remember white railed porch. If I can say it, you can remember it. The white railed porch is the composting head or the composting toilet for the day visitors. So if you need to use the facilities, that's there. If you're going up on a green railed porch, you're probably going to the museum, and I wish you wouldn't pee there. All right, come on up. If you are walking somewhere with a green, gray, or black roof, please turn around and find a red roof. But there are signs there and there. Those are most likely places you'll cross. It says, hey, don't cross here. Really don't do it. It's taken us 5 years to become friends with some of these people and to earn their trust. It can only take one person to set us all the way back. All right, let's go back now to the history of our light station. So in 1798, it was decided that we needed some sort of aid to navigation out here. And we started out with a day shape. Just so I know, who's a boater here? All right, well, okay. You guys are just gonna have to humor me if you know what all these things are. So a day shape is exactly that. You can see it, it's a shape in the day. Can't see it in fog, can't see it during night. So on top of our roof, we had a big ball. And it said, hey, the big brown ball means it's Baker's Island. That didn't work so well. So then they appropriated money. At the time, we were overseen by Beverly, Massachusetts, not by Salem. They decided that we needed 2 lanterns. Now this is an important thing because as soon as 2 lanterns went on top of our roof, we became a 2-light light station. It's important to know on the progression of our history that at one point we were always a 2-light light station. So that worked out really well until the house decided it wanted to disintegrate. You know, it was back in the good old days. They didn't have, you know, I don't know, whatever, weatherproofing, things like that. The foundation stayed, they built a second house. They appropriated funds through Congress. You cannot do a light station or a navigation aid unless Congress approves it. At which point Congress said, all right, we will pay for a light station or a lighthouse out here at Baker's Island. In 1816, the first lighthouse was our male counterpart. She was a granite lighthouse, octagonal, encased in wood. We had one light. That's all well and good, but most of the shipping trade would leave port for anywhere for 3 to 4 years. Again, no social media. We had 2 lanterns when some of these ships left. When they started coming back in with their cargo full of tin and peppercorns, all of a sudden there's only one light. So basically the cargo ship, the Union, came in during a nor'easter in 1817. Remember, Ma Baker, the little lighthouse was built in 1816. The Union comes in January of 1817 in a nor'easter and only sees one light. All captains were also pilots at the time. Well, if it's only one light, it must be Boston Harbor. So he navigated as if he was coming into Boston. He went aground on the ledge out here. No one was killed or injured, but they lost their entire load of peppercorns and tin. At which point, Beverly, again, overseeing this island, said, I think it's time we need a second light. We were known for a second light station. The money was appropriated in 1820 to build the second lighthouse, and in January of 1821, he was lit. Once again, Baker's Island becomes a second, a 2-light lighthouse. Thatcher Island is also a 2-light light station, but the height difference is easily determined when you're out on the water. So we're short and squat, Thatcher's tall and skinny. Okay, so now we have 2 lighthouses. It's awesome. As things were progressing, technology also did. Who has the bundle of pictures?
Rip.
Awesome. Okay. So they're trying to come up with a solution of how not to have 2 lights. It's expensive to keep them built. So basically the decision was, all right, how many people broke thermometers? Well, you guys are too young. Most of this group are my age. How many people used to break thermometers and push mercury across the floor? Okay. It was a lubricant. It moved easily. Brilliant people figured out if we put our Fresnel lens on a bed of mercury, it'll rotate. Well, there you go. We don't need to have stationary lights anymore because we can come up with a flash pattern or a rotating pattern. Well, that's all well and good. They figured out, okay, if I put it on a bed of mercury, it's going to rotate. But how's it going to rotate? Well, see, I'm going to have to find this really quick. And these pictures will be available up at the lighthouse too. The grandfather clock mechanism, the chains and counterweights. So on the outside, and the footprint next to our tower is still there, there was actually a little area where the chains and counterweights, so the lighthouse keepers had to wind the lighthouse every day to get it to rotate. Okay, so they figured out we don't need to maintain that second light anymore. We have one, we have a flash pattern, life is good. 1916, the decision is made, we're going to extinguish the light on the smaller one. She was starting to fall apart. She was encased in wood. That's another important piece of information. 1916, in that time frame, there were 2 major world things going on. Anyone? I love you. In a nice platonic kind of way. Because not many younger people would actually even come up with that answer, so thank you. Does anyone know what the second major world event, it kind of was around 1918. It was when all the troops from World War I were coming home.
Spanish flu.
Thank you. So the flu pandemic of 1918. Technically, it was spread mainly from Fort Devens in Massachusetts. The people came home. There was the potential that Woodrow Wilson, the president. Okay, we
Sure.
just failed our own history test. It was Woodrow Wilson. Thank you. It was potential when he was signing the peace treaty. He was actually already suffering from the flu. Whenever the troops came back, they were decommissioned in Fort Devens. They got on trains. Texas, Midwest spread the flu. So we were short-staffed at that time. So Ma Baker, our little tiny girl lighthouse, was decommissioned in 1916, but we were not fully staffed until 1926. Nothing leaves an island. It gets pushed off a cliff. Ma Baker in 1926 was pushed off the cliff in the fall. When you go down the Fog Bell Trail, the cut granite pieces are the lighthouse, okay? You'll see other parts in different areas, but she is basically the steps of our Fog Bell Trail. So now we're one lighthouse thing. In October of 1926, she was pushed off the cliff. In the spring of 1927, this sun parlor was put on our house. would have never paid for wood. Remember, Ma Baker was encased in wood. This is what the house looked like beforehand. This is what she looks like now. We're fairly certain and I'm rewriting history here, so just go with it because I'm a romantic. The sun parlor's made for Ma Baker. The interior door here still exists on the inside of that sun parlor. So I'm fairly certain my favorite room in the entire property is Ma Baker. Okay, come on home. Round to our focal point. The focal point means where the light bulb is. We're 59 feet off the ground and 111 feet off the water. So this light station, basically this would have been the barn. I don't have that perfect picture. But what was really cool, remember I told you the assistant keeper, low man on the totem pole, in the nor'easters of January, they had to walk outside. The keeper, however, had a breezeway walking from the house to the lantern room to the two towers. He never had to get cold. He was a smart man. Come on up. We have a few more things, and then we'll let you go explore. Station would be. So it's a really good gig. The other thing I want you guys to look at, rarely in the 1800s was a skylight put on a house. If you look on our other side of our house, there's a skylight. The only thing it looks at is light. So when I get up in the middle of the night, I can see whether the light's burning or not. Another way the keeper could check up on the assistant keeper is, hey, has he got the thing lit? Yes, he does. So, all right. This is our helipad. We haven't had a helicopter land since 1996 when they rebuilt the lighthouse. If we're looking at our different areas here, in the haze, you're going to see Rockport. So our helipad is pointing to true north. Gloucester and Rockport's that way. It's the down east concept. So Gloucester's east of us. That would be Portugal if you kept going. And we're over there is Beverly. All right, so how many people have been to the USS Constitution and the Charleston Naval Yard? You do know that the only reason why it is still standing is because our lighthouse keeper, Joseph Perkins, saved that ship. So basically during the War of 1812, around 1814, the USS Constitution was out here being chased by two British frigates. Joseph Perkins, who was also the local pilot, rowed his dory out to the U.S. Constitution and said, Captain, I can safely get you into Marblehead where Fort Sewell is. Is that okay with you? The captain realized he was going to be killed. He said yes. Basically, Joseph Perkins got it safely to Fort Sewell under the cannons. The frigates could not maneuver through the rocks and the ledges out here. So Joseph Perkins, our lighthouse keeper, saved the U.S. Constitution so it on July 4th could leave the dock, turn around, blow off its cannons, and go back. Just saying. All right. I know, it's amazing. So if you guys have any questions, we aren't able to climb the tower only because we have no safety railings there. The wrought iron railings have disintegrated and we're trying to get a grant to redo them. And there's no child safety at the platform. So we tend not to go up that way. You're welcome to go in and look. This little lantern house is what used to be in the winter. Remember, we were whale oil for a while and then animal lard and then we went to kerosene. But whale oil and lard in the winter becomes a solid. So they had a potbelly stove in the lantern room, warm enough to basically melt it, to be able to vaporize it, light it. They would have their lantern lighting kit and then they'd run up the stairs and light the light. So basically that's our lantern house. It is also our gift shop. Behind the gift shop in the tower is a brick building. The engine house is there. That's where the foghorn is. Still is. It's no longer, there's no fire, there's no steam, there's no nothing. It's all automated. How many people know how to set off a foghorn? Boaters? Where's my boater? Okay. So the foghorns, this will be my last thing and then I'll let you go, I promise. Because I could talk really a long time. So foghorns used to be, it would set out a light into the air. How quickly it bounced off vapor particles and came back to hook the circuit, to start the circuit, that's when the foghorn would go off. And every once in a while it would send another light out, and as long as it was still foggy, the foghorn would go off. However, the Coast Guard has determined that they're not making those products anymore. So they're trying to save the use of the foghorn. Well, that's all well and good. Now the foghorn is what's called Mariner activated. Go on your VHF radio, channel 83. Yes, I'm telling you this. Keep in mind. Coast Guard will tell you too. Go on channel 83, hit your call button 5 times. Your closest foghorn will go off for goes off more now because it's Mariner activated than it did when it was foggy. The Coast Guard published an article in the Boston Globe, so everyone thinks it's a great idea to go by here. Set up the foghorn. 5:10 Monday afternoon, the ship leaves from Boston. The cruise ship goes into Gloucester. Around 5:10 every Monday, the foghorn goes off. I'm just saying, I think it's the capital. So right now, we basically have a foghorn that goes off via the radio. It's the same mechanism as private planes coming into an airport would be able to turn on the runway lights.
Yes.
We have
Hi,
the exact
everything
same
okay?
mechanism. It's just now activating our foghorn. So when you go down the Fog Rail Trail, you can see our foghorn just to the back of our building. It looks like R2D2.
Yes, I'm so
All right,
sorry.
so if you want to have any questions, Jerry will be in the gift shop. Brian and I will be more than happy to answer any questions you guys have. If you have an idea or your family wants pictures, I know the perfect places to get pictures. And also where the easiest places to just kind of walk around. Okay? Questions?
And then push the thing down.
I did it.
I'm so sorry.